This is my research designs and classifications of data screencast. I'll be going through all the different types of research designs and the different classifications of all information and stuff like that. So we'll start off on this. Just research designs. So we have 5 different categories of research designs. The first one is within subjects. This is when you use the same people in a test, but then you put them in different conditions and compare the results. So an example of this would be if you put a group of sports science students and did an experiment on a factor affecting performance, and then you then later test this in a different condition and compare the results and see how that's changed, kind of thing. And the next one is between groups. These are separate groups testing 2 separate things and comparing results. So you'd get a sports science group, and you'd get a maths class, say, and then this would give you a comparison between 2 different groups of people that may be the complete opposites of each other. Matched pair. These are 2 groups with similar characteristics. So it would be a first year sports science group and a second year sports science group doing an experiment, and then you compare the results to see if there's any change. There's also 2 different types of data collection. The first being field and the second being lab based. Field based is when it's collected in a natural environment. So if you're doing track running, then you'd go perform your experiments on a running track somewhere. Whereas lab-based collection is where it's in a controlled lab environment, so you get the most accurate results for the performer, but you won't get the full spectrum of like how other factors like weather, temperature, and all that can affect their performance. And next we have experimental research designs, and there's 5 types of experimental research designs. The first being experimental. This is a systematic. So you change one variable in it. So you do a test and say you increase the distance someone runs over. So in a sprint you make them do 50 metre, and then you change the one variable to make it 100 metres. So you're changing one factor of the design and testing how changing that variable affects the results. Another example of that would be doing one in a sports hall, and the next would be doing one on a running track to see how different surfaces affect running performance, stuff like that. The next one is cross-sectional. This is a range of people from an overall population, so you kind of take a broad spectrum of people and abilities and ages and then do tests for them. The next one is a case study, and this is an investigation over time, so you'd get a small group of people and then you test them over a prolonged period of time, and then this would give you improvements, and it would give you comparisons from the beginning to the start. From the beginning to the end. Next is longitudinal. This is the same variable over a very long time. So you keep in the same variables, and you're keeping it all the same, and then you're just monitoring change over time. And comparative is the 5th one. This is comparing 2 or more things. So you'd be comparing how temperature and age affects sprint performance. So then you could compare some young athletes in a hotter condition and a colder condition, and some older middle-aged people in a warmer and a colder condition, and then compare the 2. So it's more like doing 2 experiments at once. Next we have research sources, and we have 2, which are primary and secondary. And primary is your own personal data that you found out, you've tested. So you've come up with a theory or a test to see if you can find something out, and all the results you get from it are classed as primary sources and primary data. So you can use that as you've found that out. And then we have secondary, which is information from other sources. So this is when you go do research on the internet, you go look through books, you find out information from other people, and these are all things that other people have tested and you haven't tested, so you don't know under what circumstances it's been tested, how many people, and stuff like that. So it's a little bit more out of your hands, and it'll probably be a little less specific to what you're trying to test. There's 6 classifications of data. The first one being discrete. Discrete data has it's a very simple it's very simple data. It has no specific values. This is generally classed as yes or no, or male, female. So you only have options, and it's very, very simple data. Nominal data is frequency data. So it's frequencies, categories, and it has very big ranges. So this kind of data is kind of classed as below average, average, above average, excellent. So you have more of a range of options to go into and mark yourself down as, but there's not like a clear-cut barrier in between them. The next one is ordinal, and this is ascending and descending. So it goes from 1, say you're testing 6 subjects, it goes from number 1 to 6. It has no values, and there's no difference between the levels. So it's like putting it in rank order, but you can't see a clear-cut definition between all of them. So the difference between 1 and 2 could be a matter of half a second, whereas the difference between 2 and 3 could be a matter of 5 seconds. So you can't really see a change between the two of them. And then we have continuous, which is numerical data to any precision. So any data that is in seconds, minutes, and stuff like that. So it has a specific numerical value to represent it. And then this is split into 2 separate categories, which are interval and ratio. Interval is where the data is on a set scale and there's no real zero to it. So this would an example of this would be weight loss or things along those lines, because you can lose and gain weight. Whereas ratio has an absolute zero. So this would be numerical data such as height and distance jumped and information like that. Alright, these are just a few examples of what the data is. So we have sprint, which is a ratio data, because there's a high precision value down there. I think there's 2 decimal places, and also it doesn't have an absolute zero because you can't get a negative time in sprint. Next we have a standing broad jump, which is in rank order, so that would be classed as an ordinal data. There's no clear definition between it all. Next is height. This is a ratio data because there's 2 decimal places. As I said before, it is very precise. It has 0 measure because you can't go negative height. Next we have is smoker, which is a yes or no answer. So this would be classed as discrete. Set and reach here. This is classed from below average to excellent. So it goes below average, average, over average, and excellent. So we have 5 or 6 categories there. So that would be classed as a nominal because it's set into the stages kind of thing. Next we have here is weight change. This can go into negative, so this is classed as interval. So yeah, as it goes into the negative, that's how it can be classed as interval. Next is sex, which again is the same as the smoking and non-smoking. It's just discrete. So we've got a yes and no. We've got a male and female on the sex one. So There's two options, very simplistic. And the next one here we have is age, which we can't go onto the negative numbers, so it's got to be continuous data. Yeah, and as it can't go below 0, that's why it's classed as that. And now we have the 4 different interview groups. The first is structured, and this is where you have a set list of questions, and then you ask them to the client. You don't ask any other questions. You don't let them develop into other questions, kind of thing. So advantage of this is that there is set questions. It gives the confidence to the interviewer, and it keeps them in control of the conversation, and also it keeps a good flow to the conversation because they have set questions, so they know where they're going to go after the client's answered. And the disadvantages of this is that it's too rigid, so they have to stick to the questions and they can't go off those set questions. Also, that another disadvantage of it would be that they never develop the ideas, so the client can only answer what the interviewer is asking, so they won't be able to give their own personal take on a lot of stuff or develop it into other answers. The next, which is the complete opposite of the structured one, is unstructured. And in the unstructured here, we have one question at the start, and then this then gets developed by follow-up questions from the answers that the client gives. So advantages of this is that you can get a broad amount of information out of the client because you're developing from their answers, and you get more personable answers as well, so that other answers, other important information from those questions and answers they give you, you can get a lot more personal information and important information about them as a person out of it. Next we have is focus group. This is where a cross-section of people that come from the community, so you have like a wide range of people, and answering the same question. And the advantage of this would be that the general idea from the population will come out, and a variety of opinions will come out from the people. But a disadvantage of this would be that some people might be uncomfortable talking about that certain subject because it's quite close to them, or they don't feel confident in talking about it. And the next is that it's hard to lead because there's no clear leader or topic about it. And the final one is semi-structured. This is when you have a smaller, like 3 or 4 questions, and then you ask them to the people. This gives the person an opportunity to say other things, and they're able to adapt to the conversation. But disadvantages would be they only get one opinion from the questions compared to the focus group and stuff like that. And it's also hard to create questions on the spot. Right, next we have observations, specifically notational analysis. And generally what this does is you count up all the different skills someone does in a game, and this is all split into different positions. Generally you'd only do it for one client, and you'd count up all the different things they did. For example, attack, break, defence, error, goal kick, line, as you can read there. And all this would do is it would see whether the person's applicable for the position and whether they're struggling with any specific skills. And if they are, then you can improve them on that and coach them in that specific area. Last but not least, we have a questionnaire, which is split into 2 types of questions in the questionnaire you can have. First is open questions. These are questions that you ask them that they can develop into. For example, you could ask them what their general diet is, and this would then allow them to go into more detail what their diet is, if they think it's good and stuff like that. Whereas the other one is a closed question, so it would be more of a, is your diet good, yes or no? Do you smoke, yes or no? So it'd be a more brief answer from the questions you're asking. But a good thing about the questionnaire is that you can ask the same questions to everyone, so you can compare the results that you get from the questionnaire, which is always good as a researcher, because it gives you good detail that you can explain and analyse after you've taken the questionnaire.